The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. We wanted to start the show today with just a bittersweet moment and say a fond farewell to a wonderful woman, Faye Koneski. And you know, what a fabulous, fabulous person who I never got to meet, but she was from East Haven, Connecticut. She served her community by being a school secretary, and we all know what angels those people are. And most importantly, here to Autism Live, she was Samantha's grandmother. And so we wanted to take just a moment to remember her. Samantha's 3 favorite words that she remembered her grandmother by, and I quote, feisty, self-assured, and loved. Could you be any 3 better things? Thank you, Faye, for all the time and effort that you put in, for all the kids that you helped, and for being Samantha's grandmother. In other respects, we want to welcome you to this show. I want to remind you that I'm Shannon Penrod and that I am a very grateful and proud. I was trying to think of what all the words are, autism mom. And I want to say that today more than any day. Last night, my son and my husband and I went to a screening of Swim Team, which we featured Laura Stolman on the show last week, the director. And she was there. We got an opportunity to meet her, and 2 of the people who are featured in the movie were there as well. The coach, Mike the coach, and his son Mikey, and what a wonderful, wonderful event it was to see a group of people screen that movie together, it's a fabulous movie. If you haven't seen it yet, guess what? You have the opportunity on Monday. It's going to be on PBS on Monday night. Check out your local listings to see what time it is, but it's part of the POV, Point of View, series on PBS. So you get to see it, and I'm telling you, you need to see it. Really, really inspiring movie. Okay, so we've got such a huge show for you here today that I don't even know where to start, except to say that we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours, and the whole show is meant to be interactive. We hope that you will write in with your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns. Samantha is going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate, some of the different ways that you can write into us. I want to remind you while she's doing that our homepage is autism-live.com. That's the dash, right? Or the minus sign, as the youngins tell me that they call it, the minus sign. Autism-live.com, right? And when you go there, you can watch the live show just by clicking on the triangle that's on the computer screen. That will start the live show or the most recently recorded live show. Or you can put in a question on the other side, which is the live feature. You just put your cursor in the box that says your question, you start typing, you hit enter, and it shows up here on the screen, and I can talk to you. And better than that, you can talk to our experts, which is really a fun thing to do. And oh my gosh, the show is so packed today, it would take us 6 hours to really get through it. We're going to have to, I'm going to have to stay on pace here. So I hope that you'll participate. I do like to remind you that though we have experts on the show, I don't consider myself one of them by any stretch of the imagination. As I said, I'm a mom. I'm a former teacher. I am somebody who cares about this community in every way, shape, and form. Whether you are a parent, you are a teacher, you're a practitioner, or you yourself are the individual who's on the autism spectrum. And by the way, as yesterday's show proved, you might be all of those things, right? It could be that you are all of those things. But if you are just one of them, and in fact, if there is someone that you care about that's on the autism spectrum, you're a part of my tribe. And you know that when you come here, I say we can do this together. We can help each individual on the autism spectrum to get to meaningful substantive progress that is meaningful to them, right? That's the really important part of this, that it's meaningful to them and that we can do that together, si se puede, right? In fact, I want to do a big shout out. I know that for all of you who have friends and relatives in Puerto Rico, that we are all holding our breath and watching and praying and waiting for the moment in which we can be of more use than we are right now. Some of you are still waiting to hear from your loved ones and your relatives. Please know that you're in our prayers, and we're going to be bringing you more information hopefully next week about how we can all mobilize to be of help as communications come back up. We're hoping in these, these early dark days that they're finding ways to get by, but this is going to be a long haul. And we all want to be helpful and supportive. So stick with us. Si se puede, right? Okay. Now, we'd like to start every show with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to figure out just what are the experts talking about. And Samantha, I'm dead in the water here, so you're going to have to help me because I have it here. There, but she'll put it up on the screen for you guys. Okay, so today's jargon term is FBA. Now, I get this wrong all the time, and certainly did. I was like, the FAB and the FBI. All of those things are things, but they're different things, right? The FBI and the FBA are very, very different, thank goodness. So FBA, which stands for Functional Behavior Assessment. So let's take a look at what our actual definition for FBA is. It's a multi-step, problem-solving assessment process designed to determine the function of a behavior. Okay. All right, I kind of understand that. I know what a multi-step thing is. I know what it means to problem solve. I know that an assessment is a fancy way that people say test, designed to determine the function of a behavior. Well, I kind of get function of a behavior, sort of. Okay, so let's move on to what does that actually mean, and what does it do for me in my life, and how can it help to save me money and time and get to those goals? So let's take a look at our working definition here. FBA, it's an essential process that helps us understand why challenging behavior is happening so that we can change it effectively. Okay, so the example that I always like to use is that we drive our cars, right? Most of us drive our cars, and every once in a while something happens with your car. Maybe it starts making a noise, maybe something stops working, whatever, right? And we drive it over to the shop, and we say to the mechanic, who's gone to some sort of class and gotten some certification, it's making this and so noise. And then what does he do? He asks us a bunch of questions, right? He's like, well, does it do it when this happens? Does it do it when that happens? Because he or she is trying to determine what are the circumstances in which this happened. But usually they don't leave it there. The next thing that they do is go, let me take it for a test drive. Give me the keys and I'm going to go drive it around and see if I hear the noise. And then they might try something. They might pinch a line to see, oh, what does this do, right? And then they come back and go, you know what it is? It's your water pump. And I know this because and then they know how we're going to change the water pump, right? And you're like, oh, it's the water pump. Now the expectation is if we change the water pump, it's all going to be better, right? Sometimes it's not, and sometimes you got to come back because there's two things, right? But you didn't know until process of elimination that you found out it was the water pump, and you did need a new water pump. Okay, what does this have to do with autism? You're like, all right, I get it. Well, what does this have to do with autism? It's the same thing. When our kids start doing something or they've been doing something, remember that there's always a reason for behavior, right? There's a function for the behavior. There's a way in which this behavior is being reinforced. Now, a lot of times we just react in the moment. So the child is spitting on their fingers and they're drawing on their desk, and we automatically mobilize into a behavior intervention plan. We go, stop doing that, right? Isn't that what we do as people? That's how we were raised, and that's what we do. Some people will, move the child's hands out of it and wipe their hands off and go, no, we don't do that. Yick, right? That's their behavior intervention plan. Okay, but here's the problem. We didn't do what we did with the water pump, right? And so we go, and I don't know why it didn't work. I told him no. Well, that would be the same as going, oh, I hear a clank in my car, so I'm just going to go ahead and change the tires. Until you've had somebody diagnose and go, why is this happening? Your intervention probably isn't going to be as effective. So instead, if, like you do with your car, if you said, okay, first of all, I'm going to talk to an expert about this, and the expert goes, when is it happening and how is it happening and so on and so forth, right? Does it happen when this happens, right? They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. That's what an FBA starts with, asking you questions about when do you see it happening, right? But just like the mechanic, the behaviorist is going to say, let me take this for a test drive. Let me try something with the child. And sometimes, for instance, if it's attention driven, they'll try to see, is this if we think it's attention driven, they'll try to see, is this happening in the absence of people? Because if it is, it's not 100% attention driven, right? So they'll do a couple of little things to see, oh, does it happen here? And they observe it just like the mechanic. And then they come back and they say, oh, you know what? This behavior is attention driven, but it's also got this element of escape into it. So now that we know what it is, here's the intervention that we're going to do. And guess what? It's almost always 1,000,000 times more effective because you actually know what it is you're trying to change, right? And it makes for happier kids too, because the function of the behavior is what gives them the paycheck. And when you look at the function of the behavior and go, oh, well, what the child is getting is attention, we don't just take the attention away, we find a way to give attention in a different place in a different way that's more meaningful to the child. So it's not this torturous thing. We go, oh, well, what they're getting from it is this, so let's give it to them in this way that's more functional. And then things get exciting because then the kid is happier, everybody in the room is happier, everything gets better, right? So a functional behavior assessment, it's somebody going, just like the mechanic, when is it happening? What was happening before? What happens as a consequence of that happening? And then they test drive with the child and see, they observe, and they might do something to see how does the child react to that. And then they're able to find the function of the behavior, which gives you the best chance of having an intervention plan that's meaningful and works. Sometimes they have to go back and tweak it, just like sometimes you have to do it with the mechanic, right? But we can't just assume. Now, and just like your mechanic, after a period of time, when you go to your mechanic for the same thing over and over and over again, you start to get better at diagnosing it, right? And go, sometimes you go to the mechanic and go, I know exactly what it is. The mechanic still asks questions and goes, yep, you were right, because you get better at it, right? Sometimes you get to the point where you go, I know what this is, I just need to change my oil, and I'm going to do it myself, right? Sometimes we can get to that point with our kids with behavior. But if it's something where a child is potential to get hurt or hurt somebody else, or if it's something that, we really don't want it to get any worse, take it to an expert. Get the FBA. That's when you're going to be the most effective. Because if you blow it and you put an intervention in that's the direct opposite, somebody could get hurt, or you could inadvertently reinforce a behavior and make it be that much longer before we can change the behavior. All right, FBA, not the FBI, it's a good thing. Moving on, we always have a question for you, our question of the day. We like to ask you guys, and we love it when you guys answer. Our question is, what's your favorite fall activity? It's 100% real. It really is fall now. No matter where you live, in the Northern Hemisphere, we're into the fall equinox has passed, right? So I think it's very easy to get caught up and there's a lot going on in everybody's life right now, and school is back and it can be a very full life. It's so important to enjoy the seasons. It's so important for our kiddos. The whole the whole year goes by and they get one shot at Halloween if you celebrate Halloween, right? So by the time they're 12, they've only had 12 or 13 Halloweens, depending on when their birthday falls. That's not enough opportunity. So we really want to love our seasons. We want to make sure that they participate in them. It's a social thing. I hope that you can think of at least one thing that you really like to do during the fall and prioritize that. Say, if we don't do anything else, let's at least let's go apple picking, because that's the thing that's important to us. Or let's go to the fall festival that we like to go to. Or let's go to this carnival. Let's go be with our friends and have one last cookout by the beach before it gets too cool. Whatever it is, wherever you live, but prioritize, because joy we can't postpone it, right? You got to find time for the joy. So I want to know, what's your favorite fall activity, and then let's schedule it, okay? All right, we also always have a topic of the week, and our topic this week is moving the goalposts. So often we start out with something and we set ourselves a goal, right? Or we set a target for our kids that, maybe what we're working on right now is toileting. And what we've set our goal for right now is that we want for the child to go pee-pee in the potty, right? And that becomes our thing that we're going to reinforce. It's focused. We're like, this is what we're working towards right now. But the truth of the matter is that our children progress, they get better, and each time they get better, we need to move the goalpost. We can't just settle. And it's hard. It's hard because you're on a constant treadmill of, all right, what's next? So it's hard to stay in the moment and keep mindful of what's next. But we can't get complacent, right? We talked last week about the difference between acceptance and contentment. We don't have the luxury in the autism community of being content. There is work to be done. We have to celebrate when we hit a milestone and then immediately go, what's next? Right? And get our game face on to go to that. So we always, for our kiddos, so often you guys will write in and say, this reinforcement thing, I don't get it. And it just seems like we're paying our kids to do things that we want them to do on their own. And if you're thinking that, you need to really stop and look and go, okay, wait a second, am I moving the goalpost? Because if you truly make a goal, work towards it, and keep moving the goalposts, the reinforcement drops off for things that they've been able to do. I don't reinforce my kid anymore for going pee-pee in the potty, but I sure did a long time ago. I sure did, right? But that's been gone for more than a decade. So you got to keep moving the goalposts. And then we moved on to reinforcing something else, and then reinforcing something else. So now I'm reinforcing him for getting A's in his classes. And if you had said to me back in the pee-pee in the potty days that we would get to that point, I would have said, I don't know how. Doesn't matter. We still got there. So you move the goalposts and you just get further and further along. Celebrate, move the goalposts. Celebrate, move the goalposts. Okay? We're going to be talking about that some more today. Big show for you today. Like, seriously, we need to shoehorn and 3 more hours. So we've got a fabulous guest in just a second who's going to be talking to us about a new product that's coming to market called Goalie, and it's going to help us with all those executive function things that we talk about all the time on the show of how do you get a kid to the point where they're able to put together so many different elements to get to a goal and have it not be you naggy, right? Because I can nag my child into outer oblivion, right? Naggy. We don't want to do that, but what's a way that we can help to remind them and prompt them to get them to the goal and move the goalposts? So that's coming up. Goalie is the name of the product. Then we are going to have Bonnie Yates with us. Special education attorney Bonnie Yates is going to be answering some questions that you guys have written in. And then in the next hour, we have Sarah Weeks on the show. She is the award-winning author, New York Times, LA Times best-selling author of young adult novels. In fact, several novels that she has written, but we're going to be talking about So Be It, which was the young adult novel that she wrote that has been turned into a blockbuster film with a cast of stars. And we're excited to have her on the show. But unfortunately, we're talking about controversy surrounding the film and the rating that it was given. I don't know about you guys, but the top of my head comes off and flies around the room when I think about this. So, and we're going to ask you for some help because this is a not right thing. So stay tuned for that. She's going to give us some inside dish on the film, but also how this film was rated. You're not going to believe it. And then at the very end of the show, we've got a fabulous LMFT who's going to be with us. Chris Assad is going to be with us, and she's going to be talking about cognitive behavioral therapy for anxiety. So many of you write in and say, anxiety is such a big piece of this puzzle, right? And if you can't get the anxiety thing together, it's really hard to get progress in other areas, right? So we've always been talking to you about cognitive behavioral therapists, and she is one, and she'll tell us about some of the things that can be done with an individual who's on the autism spectrum to help get over that hump, at least a little at a time. Big show. You're not going to want to miss any of it. So hang on. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back to talk about Goalie.
Hey guys, for the month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autism-live. All right, let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the task that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim out the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I've finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro. I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're really excited because we're welcoming for the first time Dara Brangen. Dara, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor, Shannon.
Well, it's an honor for us, and we're going to be talking specifically about a new product that you're bringing to market called Goalie, and you're the co-founder of Goalie. And I think if it's okay with you, Dara, we're going to go right so that people will understand what it is that we're talking about. We're going to go right to your promotional video, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so let's take a look at what Goalie is.
Hello, and welcome to the product demo of Goalie. Goalie consists of a Wi-Fi connected smart clock for children and a mobile app for parents. In addition, Goalie has an intelligent adaptive learning backend system for dynamically customizing features and making recommendations for each individual child. The most important benefit provided by Goalie is helping kids develop independence. The second benefit is to reduce the stress for the parent, child, and the rest of the family. Goalie does the prompting, not the parent. Goalie uses customizable tunes, lights, and visuals to remind the kids of what needs to be done. The third benefit of Goalie is to give tangible data about the progress made by the child to both the parents and the therapists. We've been iterating Goalie for over 10 months and have tested with around 30 families so far, constantly improving based on their feedback.
Fabulous. What a great explanation, beginning explanation. But Dara, I'm so glad that you're here to talk with us about this because we want to know what, and I'm imagining that parents are already starting to get this, but what is this all about and what was the problem that you specifically were trying to fix?
Thanks. That's a great question, Shan. I should explain the video is something we just made very recently. It's one of our youngest beta testers, so it does take some explanation. Shan, as every parent knows, every parent will tell you how difficult it is to teach our kids to be independent, how difficult and stressful it is. And for children with executive functioning skills, such as autism, and as you mentioned earlier, how anxiety is so often involved, it can be that much more difficult. So it's a very, very stressful situation. Our goal is to help kids become more self-sufficient much faster and without all the stress and anxiety of the nagging and constant reminding.
I am a professional nagger. And, and I consider myself a helicopter parent. And, my son is at an age where he does not want to be nagged, but I still want those executive function goals to happen. And I see this as a wonderful, wonderful bridge. So tell us exactly, how does it work?
Well, there are two parts to Goalie. The first is there's a smartphone app for parents. So what parents do is they enter in daily activities such as brushing your teeth, getting dressed, packing your bag into the app. Now the app is connected via Wi-Fi to Goalie. The Goalie belongs to the child. It's very important that they feel this sense of ownership. And Goalie lets kids know at the right time when it's time to start a routine. So Goalie will also guide them through step by step each activity that the parent has programmed. So it's very customizable. Children can pick their own images for different activities, but it's a personal assistant for kids. And one of the reasons, Shannon, it works so well is that kids do start taking ownership of routines. The Goalie belongs to them. Instead of the parent reminding them, it's their Goalie reminding them. So a lot of that stress and tension is just taken out of the equation.
And so how did you come up with this idea? It's brilliant.
Well, it wasn't me, but thank you. The idea, no surprise, came from a stressed out parent. One of my co-founders is a super smart engineer, and he has two young kids, one of them with ADHD. He got so frustrated after trying sticker charts, smartphone apps, a lot of solutions that didn't work for him, that he literally built his own Goalie. So a few months later, when it was still working great, three of us just decided that this is something that needed to exist in the world, and we quit our jobs, and now we're trying to make it available to everybody.
We love this. And so what ages do you think this is best appropriate for?
Well, so far, we've actually have testing between ages of 4 and 19. We just extended the age range to younger adults because we had so many requests. We will make different versions of Goalie for different age groups. But I think the whole age range. Now we are focused only on kids who have executive functioning challenges.
And you mentioned your testers, and you mentioned in the video that you've got some beta testers. Who are these people that are testing it?
Well, we have 40 families testing right now, and they are fantastic. They are advisors. They're giving us feedback on what to change. They're all parents of kids with autism, a few with ADHD. So one of our earliest testers, for example, he started in January. His name is Aiden, and he's an 11-year-old boy with autism. When he first started using Goalie, he would carry it around the house with him. He called it his Goalie baby, but he would have to use Goalie for each task. Goalie would tell him what to do. Now, if you fast forward several months, now he's finishing nearly all his routines without Goalie even notifying him at all. So now he's still using Goalie, but he uses it more like you and I would use a calendar or a checklist, just to remind him, what if he's forgetting something. And that's really what we're aiming for, is to build kids' independence and executive functioning skills so they don't need Goalie anymore.
What a great example. And in general, are your beta tester families saying that they're seeing a difference with their kids?
Absolutely. Now, it's not working yet for everyone. We have about 8 out of 10 families it's working great for, and then 2 out of 10 where it doesn't work for whatever reason. But we have a great panel of advisors, medical advisors helping us. We're working to figure out how to make it work for everybody.
Love it. I have to say that I think the ABA people are going to be all over this and absolutely love it. Are you already having some therapists use it?
We have one therapist using it, but we have many therapists advising us. The Colorado Children's Hospital, University of Colorado, local neurodevelopmental people, we have great advisors. So I think the reason ABA therapists love it, as you know better than me, is it's a very data-driven science. And Goalie can help therapists collect a lot of data about how their program is working for kids when they're not there. And that can help them augment the program. It also helps busy parents who are stressed out, it makes it easier for them to implement the therapy program which their therapist is recommending.
Absolutely. We're always telling parents, the prescription for a lot of kids when they're early years might be 40 hours a week, but that's not the end of it. When the therapists leave, we as parents have to uphold it, and you have to uphold it while you're cooking dinner. You have to uphold it while you got a phone call, and anything that helps us to create more hours in which we're reinforcing the behaviors we want to see and getting them to goals. It's absolutely brilliant. So when is this going to be released?
Well, we're planning on releasing it next spring, but that may change a little bit depending on how soon we get investors. So we do have a beta program, which we're going to be expanding later this year. So not everyone will have to wait until next spring to get a Goalie, but the official release we're hoping will be next year.
Because aren't you looking to add some more testers? Isn't that one of the things you told me?
Yeah, we're hoping to add more testers. Now, right now we have quite a long waiting list, but we're hoping very shortly that we'll have the funding to build maybe 500 or 1,000 more Goalies and have a much larger test program, because we really want this to be community driven. Like, we have a small group now who are helping us make it better. We want to get all the knowledge of all the parents and all the medical experts who are helping us, and we all come together and just make this work for the whole community.
I love that you're doing it right. That's a wonderful thing. When this comes to market, how much are you thinking it's going to cost to consumers?
Now, we're not sure because we've jumped around a bit. There is the whole commercial side of this, which we were a little less used to. So we're still trying to figure out exactly what support services parents might like. So, for example, maybe they would like access to a therapist via email or a phone to help them with reinforcement and so forth. So we're thinking right now that maybe we wouldn't charge for the device at all, but we would have some sort of a monthly rental fee of like $15 or $20 for both the device and whatever services our testers tell us that ultimately they want. We need to figure that out over the next 2-3 months.
Okay, and maybe you'd like some input on that, because I'm sure parents have some thoughts on that. But how can we as a community, I think this is super duper smart, and I think people are going to want this, and I think it's going to be helpful. How can we help you to make this happen and make it happen sooner as opposed to later?
Well, thank you, Shannon. The one thing that you said is advice and ideas. We're always looking for advice and ideas on how to make Goalie better, because this is a community effort. It's going to take all of us to make this really work. The other thing that we could really use help with is getting the word out. To raise investment and get Goalie into everybody's hands, we will need to persuade investors that people really want this. So the more people we have following us on Facebook and signing up on our website, the easier it will be for us to persuade investors to make Goalie a reality.
And we have not even mentioned the website yet, so let's do that now. What's the website? And Samantha's going to pop it up on the screen for us. But tell us, Daryl, what's your website?
The website is goalie.co. It's easy to get wrong, so it's GOALLY.co.
Okay, and it's there on the screen. We're going to say it again for those of you who are listening on iTunes. GOALLY.co. It's not a typo that we're missing an M there. It's .co. Okay. Right. And so people can go there, find out more information. You mentioned that you're on Facebook. What's the name on Facebook?
If you Google for Goalie or search for Goalie in Facebook, you'll find us. You'll find us easily.
Okay, wonderful. And people can interact with you there if they want to get on the waiting list to be a beta tester or find out more information or email you. They can do all of that through the website, correct?
Absolutely. They can sign up on the website. If they do the contact us on the website, that will go directly to me. So yes.
Well, I think that this is super duper clever. Anytime that we can do something to supercharge the hours that our kids are awake and have more opportunity for them to be self-sufficient at both things, you're cooking with gas. So I think this is remarkable. I saw this and I was like, ooh, we have to have them on the show and talk about this. I wish you were having it sooner, come out sooner, because I'm just impatient like that. But I'm glad that you're waiting to do it right and taking a lot of input.
Shannon, thank you so much. It's really been great being on the show. Appreciate it.
And I got to say, especially for those of you who have kids who are, I think it's great to do it with the younger kids, but as a mom of a teenager, boy, the teenagers just don't want to hear it from us They just are so done with hearing from us. And we're kind of done with the pecking and nagging. So I really, really love this. If you were here, I would give you a hug, Dara.
Thank you.
All right. So Goally, GOALLY.co. You guys go and check it out and support this product. And then when you finally get to market, you got to come back and be on the show, okay?
Absolutely. I'll come and I'll give you a hug.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks for being with us, Dara, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Shannon.
Bye-bye. Really, I love it when people invent smart things. And for those of you who have an inventor's mind, realize the power of one. And this is already helping kids and going to help a bunch more. Goally, check it out. All right, we are going to take a break. And then I think we're actually going to have time to come back and do our mindfulness moment. So stick with us.
Potty training is different for every child. A child could come in with absolutely, no control over their bladder. And as long as that's not a medical issue, then we can certainly approach it behaviorally and give them the tools they need to be successful, just like any other skill that we would teach.
Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
For some of our kids takes, just a couple days. And then for other kids, it can take months and months and months. And then when you're looking at complete independence, it can take years.
Hey, you have to go pee-pee?
There's a lot of different ways to tell if a child is ready. We look for a couple different things. Probably the most important is parents saying, I need this to happen, I'm ready. Second is, a child showing interest in the bathroom, and some of it is simply age. It's time to go ahead and work on this.
What are you doing? Pooping. You're pooping?
You first start with teaching the child what they need to do on the toilet. The basic thing we want is for them to drink as much liquid as possible. It's inevitable that if you drink a bunch of liquid, you're gonna pee.
Help.
No, I can't help you pee.
Help.
I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
Ultimately, what we want is that, the child, as soon as they're put on the toilet, they urinate. So that's step one. Step two is usually working through the amount of time that they're off of the toilet and making sure that they're not having accidents during the time that they're off. So this is kind of the bladder control stage of things.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time. We can come play after. Hurry.
What we hope happens in this time is that the kids will learn how to initiate going to the bathroom on their own. This is oftentimes the hardest part of potty training, is because they get so used to somebody telling them when they need to go that they're not really recognizing the signs just in their own body of when they need to go.
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
Uh-oh. Big wet?
Was it a lot? We can reset to half an hour now.
The biggest thing for parents is not to give up. The other big tip, and I think pitfall that a lot of parents fall into, is putting their children back into pull-ups or diapers, especially if they're starting to have accidents. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do. They need to recognize that feeling of fullness in their bladder and take themselves to the bathroom, or tell an adult that they need to go to the bathroom.
What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack. Hey, pray for your pee-pee.
Big pee-pee.
Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big
There's nothing better than success. It takes patience, though, and a plan. And you just heard the plan right there. So it is time for our mindfulness moment. One of my favorite things to talk about mindfulness, because I'm learning and I'm getting better at it because I'm not great at it yet. But one of the things that I like to talk about, so often with mindfulness, people talk about meditative state. And a lot of times, those of us who have what I call monkey brain, where we're just constantly going, and I don't know how to turn it off. I don't know about you guys. I don't know how to turn it off. It's hard sometimes at night. I have to wind down, and it takes me a while to wake up in the morning and a while to go to sleep at night, because I got so much going on all the time that it's hard to get to just this meditative state where, you know, all you're visualizing is white noise. I don't very often get to that, right? But I'd like to get to the relaxation point, right? And for some people, you need to occupy your brain with something useful. So you can give yourself a meditative directive that you're going to sit in the room and you're going to close your eyes, center your breath, and you can focus on one word. Sometimes people do that. Some people whose minds are very busy, it's easier if you focus on numbers, counting, so that you can breathe in and visualize a 1. And then exhale and breathe in and visualize a 2. It's kind of like counting sheep, that it gives you a place to focus your mind on something, and you can get as specific as you want. Like the numbers can have colors, they can move around a little bit, but you're focused on the number. And then when other thoughts come in, you gently push them aside and go, I'm counting right now. 3, right? So you're honing your brain in on one thing along with the breath. You can, if that doesn't work for you, you can also make lists, not of things to do. It's not that kind of a list, but there are some people who have a hard time closing their eyes to get to a meditative state because they start to get anxious and, you know, because they can't be in control when their eyes are closed. So for those kinds of people, and this helps with our little ones sometimes when they're getting anxiety, when you're in some place that has a lot of sensory stuff going along, that you can say to them, okay, we're just going to make a list of all the blue things in the room. So now all of a sudden their brain has something to focus on. Okay, well, you know, that chair has a blue shirt on it. Oh, and that knob has a blue flower on it. And oh, this is blue. And it focuses, it gives your brain, that crazy, crazy brain that's moving, a chance to focus on very specific things. I was telling somebody the other day that going to the grocery store was just so hard when Jem was little. And sometimes we had more success than others, but one of the things that I would do is that especially the being in line at the grocery store, man, it was one of the toughest things for me in the world. And because he would be having all this anxiety, I guess, but he'd be acting out. There was a lot going on for both of us, and I was trying to get the groceries on the thing, and my focus was split. But I found early on that if I did something like I Spy, which was the earlier sort of version of this, that I would say I Spy, and then he would have to look for it, right? But we also, there were different little games that we played that are kind of an offshoot of this, that I would say to him, you know, let's count how many triangles can we see while we're standing in line at the grocery store. And you'd be fascinated by how many triangles you can, you know, or when we were working on circles. So we're also working on shapes when we're doing that, but it gave his mind something to focus on that's in the present. And it was just a great leveler for both of us, that we would sort of center and be, you know, I remember one time very specifically, we were in line at a grocery store and he had seen somebody in line make I'm not even good at it. I don't even remember how to do it. Make a shape make the heart with your hands. And so we began to try to figure out what shapes could we make with our two hands. And first we went through, you know, circle, and we tried to make squares, and we made triangles and rectangles, right? But then we tried to make letters in the negative space around our hands. And it was a really long line, and it saved my bacon. And we were together and interacting and in a moment that was mindful of us and what was happening. That's really what mindfulness is. It isn't always this wonderful sitting on a cloud meditative state. If we can get in the moment, powerful, powerful things can happen. So that's our mindfulness moment for today. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to be back with Bonnie Yates. Stick with us.
You and I were just talking how much we love rice.
Exactly.
And what we're trying to do with our kids is to
get them off the carbs.
Correct. Yeah. Eat correct, less rice. So literally, this is like what I would order at Benihana's or any, Japanese or Chinese food restaurant, whether you're at P.F. Chang's, and we're going to do it all with cauliflower. So let's go ahead and get started.
Let's go.
So what we want to do is throw this all into the food processor here. And we're going to get this to the consistency of little rice pellets, if you will. So, and I'll throw some on the floor for the gods who need the floor cauliflower. And that's good. I think that's enough. Okay. So we'll go ahead and pulse this on. This almost looks like the Parmesan cheese that we were making earlier with the pesto. But I love this. It's definitely got the consistency, looks a little bit like rice. So Amy, talk to me, this recipe with stir-fried rice. We want to use a soy sauce, but why no soy?
So with a lot of our kids, where we know they have issues with gluten and casein, soy is very similar in the way it's molecularly made up. So that with the gluten and casein, they break down into peptides that the body doesn't know how to process. Same thing happens with soy. So in this case, we really would caution not to do soy sauce for a recipe. So coconut aminos is a great substitute.
And so we've got our cauliflower ready to go, our peas and carrots, green onion, salt and pepper, eggs, sesame oil. Now we're going to head over to the stove. First part is to take our onions, and if you don't like green onions, this is great with sweet onions or even yellow onions chopped up. Then we're going to take our cup of peas and carrots. And I always like to say we go together like peas and carrots. So we'll get this all sauteed into tender. There's the egg. So, if we can, we'll do a little salt and pepper to taste.
Okay.
So now what we're going to do is take our secret cauliflower mix, if you want to hand that to me. And we're going to throw this in, and notice the consistency does look a lot like rice. We're going to take the secret sauce that we were talking about earlier, the coconut aminos. Just love this stuff. So it calls for a couple of tablespoons, and as you all know, I'm not a measurer. And I may just put a little more in because I love this stuff. Cheers. Oh my gosh. You would never know this is not rice.
No.
We're hiding from our children all those carbs, and we're actually eating vegetables. Go figure. Hey, thanks for joining us again. Thank you, Autism Live, and we love seeing you here. We're all about healthy eating for our kids, and we appreciate you. If you have questions for Autism Live, hit autismlive@gmail.com. If you have questions for me and want to convert more recipes with me and Amy, that'd be great. We could do that again. You can email me at lisa@takanow, TACANOW.org, and we'll see you at the next What's Left.
This cooking video is brought to you by WellAmy.com. Amy, a certified nutritionist and holistic health practitioner, is an expert on autism and special diets. Find ingredients and other GFCF-approved foods and recipes at WellAmy.com.
Are those your eyes? Is that your smile? I've been looking at you forever, yet I never saw you before. Are these your hands?
As a celebrity, whatever that means, you want to do what you can to give back. The way I've always looked at it, if I'm available, I'm going to be there. And when you get there and you see what folks are doing and the lives that they're touching, how can you not want to continue to be a part of it?
And for the first time I am looking in your
What can we all do to make a difference? Not only with trying to find a cure, but to help the children and the families that may not have the resources for these kids.
When you're looking back at me, now I understand what.
And none of us are doing enough, but I think that we're doing as much as we possibly can. Because we all live in a society, and the more we can all do to help society, the more it helps all of us.
And for the first time, I am looking in your eyes. And for the first time, I'm seeing who you are. I can't believe how much I see when you're looking back at me. Now I understand what love is. Love is for the first time.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're really excited because joining us via Skype, we have Bonnie Yates, special education attorney. We love it when Bonnie is able to be with us, and she's here with us this week, coming to us gratis of Hirji & Chow, a wonderful law firm. And so, Bonnie, tell us a little bit about Hirji & Chow so people can contact them.
Hirji & Chow is a disability discrimination and special education law firm that's based in Culver City. We can be reached at 310-391-0330. And I'm reminding you guys in California, we'll give a free, intake to anybody who asks for it.
Yeah, and it's a great thing to do. I think sometimes people are afraid to do that because they're afraid, oh no, down the road it's going to cost me whatever. It is, take advantage of it. Talk with great minds about whatever is going on. That's my advice. And who better than have an opportunity to talk to Bonnie? You already know she's fabulous. Bonnie gets it.
Well, thank you, Shannon. And I appreciate that particular comment because, yes, there's always a question as to, what's the consultation going to lead to? What I find in my older age, when I've now watched 20 years worth of, cases go through the system, is that the best fix in the world, in my opinion, is to get a family that has a 3-year-old in California and they're about to get into a big fight with their school district, and you say, hey, wait a second, do you have medical insurance? And they say, yeah. Well, does your policy include intensive autism treatment as part of the benefits? Well, yes. Well, my suggestion to you is forget about me, forget about the school district, and do an intensive ABA program for a couple years. And then when it's time for your son or daughter to go off to kindergarten, and education becomes compulsory, and insurance is perhaps going to get more resistant to providing home-based services. Let's talk then.
Yeah.
And those are like my best calls, because I feel like people can get directed to an agency that's going to give them good behavior intervention, and they're not going to have any of the distractions that you have when you are trying to impose something upon the school district that, even though they should be receptive and supportive, they're actually going to block you.
Yeah.
So that's one kind of call that makes me very happy, is like people come in and they're inundated with so much different information, and they don't know where to start or what to do or who's good or who's bad. And then yesterday I wanted to update you, Shannon. We had a call from somebody who was being told that if she didn't vaccinate her son by October 6th, he couldn't come to school anymore. And I said, well, I've got a very quick fix for you. You decide what you think about it. There's a provision in the new legislation that says you can get a medical exemption. You can continue to have a medical exemption if your doctor writes you up as your child's medical condition makes it such that it would not be a good idea to get the vaccines. And I gave her the name of a particular doctor who has said as much. And I said to her, what I learned about this is that it's pretty clear the school districts are not going to get an opportunity to second guess the doctor. And that's probably the easiest way to solve that on an individual basis. Now, you can also get, something in writing in theory, because some of the legislation said if you had an IEP, you couldn't be made to do this. But the problem with that route is that the state of California, in the form of the Department of Ed and the Department of Health, have said they are not going to adjudicate disputes between school districts and families about whether to vaccinate. They're going to leave that up to the local district. But again, that was a one-off. It didn't require any legal work, but it did, I think, put the person in a position where now she has an option if she wants to continue in public school and she doesn't want to have a big fight about inoculation.
That's amazing. That's amazing information that I know people have been looking for and are going to continue to look for. So thank you for that, Bonnie.
Yeah, any pediatrician can do it. They just have to be willing, and they have to have a plausible explanation. But for example, this particular boy who's 4, when he had the last round of his shots, he broke out in horrible eczema afterwards, and the doctor's take on that was that he had an allergic reaction triggered by the vaccine. That would be I'm not a medical doctor, but to me that would be a very bona fide reason for delaying the shots.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. The plan could be no shots, or the plan could be study the situation, we'll revisit in 1 year.
Right.
They're not going to be able to second guess a doctor. So that was sort of my little vaccine update for you guys.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Then there was a question, Shannon, about whether a person who has never observed a student can make a recommendation for a change of placement to a less restrictive setting. And the way that I analyze that is that it's really a question about the value or the probative value of a particular piece of evidence. And certainly that teacher could come in and testify, yes, I recommended this and here are my reasons. But the weight of her evidence would be very, very little. Maybe there's a school psychologist, like whoever made the recommendation, it was a victim. Her information is not going to carry a lot of weight if she gets into a due process hearing, because she's never seen the student. And that's such a fundamental thing. It's like, a hearing officer is not going to put a lot of weight on the testimony of somebody who's never seen the student. So I think that's the way you go with that one.
And if I could just follow up with that, because we had a couple of conversations about this, Mom and I, about, it was shocking to me and to her that somebody would come in to an IEP having never observed the child, having never assessed the child, no assessment had been done, and she says, we're changing the placement, this is our offer of FAPE, and greatly changing the placement in the services based on nothing. And both she and I said, are we missing something here? Because either she's up to something else or she doesn't understand that she would lose in due process. So why is this person in the school doing something? And we really don't want to assume that she's dumb, but you have to have some kind of proof, right?
Maybe she has an appropriate credential or appropriate training, in order to make the call. Maybe it's a power trip. I have, it's very
weird
hard.
though, right? It's weird though, right?
It is bad. It is bad strategy on the part of the district, and it's
Okay.
unusual. Yeah.
All right. Thank you
Yeah.
for confirming that. I know I feel better, and I think Mom will feel better just knowing that. Okay.
Okay. Now we got two other things on my list. One
Yes.
is restraint, seclusion, and the other is assessments for ADHD.
Yes.
So let's take care of the ADHD issue first, because the restraints and seclusion is a longer discussion that we may want to continue into next week.
Okay.
Okay. There is a pattern that I'm seeing in California public schools of parents with students who have ADHD coming in and being told, okay, you have ADHD, I see your doctor's letter or your psychologist report. Fine, we'll put you on a 504 plan. And then there's a discussion about what the accommodations are going to be. The law coming out of the federal government is very clear that that is not an adequate program to address ADHD. And that once you have ADHD and you qualify under the federal guidelines of Section 504, you have a disability. And if you have a disability, they have to assess. And so what I sent you, and once they assess, if the assessment is done right, it's pretty probable that the kiddo is going to need an IEP if his ADHD is interfering with his ability to learn in the classroom. And I've had some situations where the district gave the 504, there wasn't really any ability to enforce it, and a year later the parents were pushing harder with a more comprehensive evaluation. They got the IEP. The student now has not only the accommodations but also the support classes to do the general ed, and he's doing fine. But the federal government has given us some really, I think, bright line, nice stuff about the district's duty for a student with ADHD. The student I'm trying to help this week has 120 IQ, but her attention on directed instruments that address attention shows that it's in the less than first percentile. So she's having a really hard time. She's very anxious. She's not getting all of her assignments. It's not surprising at all. And the district has offered a 504 plan, very limited accommodations, and has failed to assess. So the stuff that we sent you a quick and dirty, and we sent you a slow and dirty. And the slow and dirty is a 2016 article about how you're supposed to handle students that have ADHD under Section 504, the ADA, and IDEA. And it's really an excellent article. The quickie basically just provides an overview and essentially says, listen, schools have to evaluate when a student needs or is believed to need special education and related services, period. And that, if you have ADHD, there's this prejudice that, if you're doing okay in school, you don't need any accommodations or services. But the language is, the guidance makes clear that schools must not rely on the generalization that students who perform well academically cannot also be substantially limited in major life activities such as reading, learning, writing, and thinking, and that such a student, in fact, can be a person with a disability. So they're taking, they're not saying, well, gee, actually now we've decided ADHD should be a direct eligibility category in IDEA. It never has been, unlike autism. But what they are saying is, don't discriminate against a person because you have some preconceived notions about how ADHD isn't that disabling. You have to, verify how the student is functioning through objective criteria like assessments. So that's sort of the short version of what goes on with ADHD. But the longer version is in this other article, and I think I'm trying not to drop paper, Shannon. I think it's so well articulated what they're talking about here in the.
And both of the things that you're talking about, you've sent to us and we've posted on Facebook today. Is that correct?
The third thing, students with ADHD in Section 504, a resource guide. I just sent you a picture, a camera phone picture of that this morning.
Okay, so where do people find this one that you're about to talk about? The Students with ADHD and Section 504, a resource guide. Where can they find that, access to that?
You
just Google it?
Yeah, the article is called, it's a Dear Colleague letter from 2016. That's what they call them.
Okay. So
anyway,
okay.
I'm just, because I think this is so good, I just want to read really quickly one page of what the Department of Ed, the feds, are saying about how ADHD should be handled. So basically, they're saying that the law has changed in the last 5 years, and so there's some new things that we need to be aware of. Okay, over the past 5 fiscal years, up until 2015, the Office of Civil Rights received more than 16,000 complaints alleging discrimination on the basis of disability. So 1 in 9 of those, or about 2,000, had to do with ADHD. In resolving such complaints, OCR has found that many teachers and administrators often take appropriate action to ensure that students with ADHD receive the protections to which they are entitled. But many others are not familiar with this disorder or how it could impact a student's equal access to a school district's program. Throughout our enforcement efforts, we have learned that many students with ADHD are still experiencing academic and behavioral challenges in the education setting, and that policy guidance is needed. So they go on to say, OCR investigations have revealed that students with ADHD could be denied FAPE because of problems that school districts have in identifying and evaluating students who need special education because of ADHD. Some of these problems are: 1, students never being referred or identified as needing an evaluation. 2, students not being evaluated in a timely manner. 3, districts conducting inadequate evaluations of students. In addition, even if properly identified, a student with ADHD who's determined to have a disability is not always receiving appropriate services. So they're talking about the wholesale failure of school districts to deal with ADHD as a disability under Section 504 and the ADA. And they are also pointing out that sometimes they don't in-service staff adequately. And get this, sometimes they consider inappropriate administrative and financial burdens in selecting and providing appropriate aids and services. So they're considering money, that's a no-no. So just to conclude, as outlined in the department's regulations implementing Section 504, school districts must conduct individualized evaluations of students who, because of disability, including ADHD, need special education and related services, must ensure that qualified students receive appropriate services based on need, not cost, and not based on stereotypes or misunderstandings of the disability. So I wanted to bring this onto the show because I have learned in my experience that sometimes other family members in a family where one child has autism will have ADHD, and that should not be a kiss-off kind of a situation. The person should be appropriately and thoroughly evaluated by a competent assessor from the school district. So that's why I'm wanting to bring this up on the show now.
Absolutely, because we are seeing more and more kids that this is the category in which they fit. And I always go back to, as an educator, we have a responsibility. The laws are in place so that every single student who comes into a classroom has that right to a free, appropriate public education. And we're, if we continue to persist in this idea of cookie cutter education, we're going to see that there are more kids who just don't fit into it. And we have a responsibility to educate each and every one of them.
Well, the killer for me is seeing how somebody that's 15, 16 years old has a specific learning disability, let's say, and or ADHD, because they often come hand in hand. They're going to have another big problem, and it's not going to be an academic problem per se. These kids, if they don't get properly identified and served, they're smart kids. They know something's wrong. They start to develop generalized anxiety disorder. They become sometimes unable to go to school. They get depressed. And that's all avoidable. It's not a, it's not a quote unquote biochemically based depression that's, inherited or something. It is a situational depression because you're a young, sensitive, feeling, decent human being, and you try 3 times as hard as everybody else, and you can't, for the life of you, figure out how to solve your academic problems, and the support is inadequate. And so this is a big deal, and we really need to push back on it and demand comprehensive assessments, direct assessments. Not just so I observed him on the playground and he seems okay to me.
Right. Don't you think that part of the problem is that the schools haven't really addressed and trained teachers in the techniques that they need to do to be able to support those kids? So they can assess them, they can say on paper, here are the goals and whatever, but until they're willing to put money towards training teachers to be able to do that, which means we've got to make it happen at the university level, but that's not going to change the teachers that are out there that have been teaching for 30 years. We need to give tools to all of them.
Well, that's some of it, but I find that the students that had the 504 plans, once they get the IEP, they get resource support, they get a case carrier, they have measurable goals and objectives, and I think those students start to do better because there's accountability built in. There is no accountability built into Section 504. I've heard people say ridiculous things about it. The joke was some educator said it was a powerful tool. It's not a powerful tool. I mean, it's only a powerful tool when you've exhausted your administrative remedies and you're about to file a lawsuit against the district for disability discrimination. But that's not what our clients want to be doing. They want to get assessed and they want to have a decent IEP for their child, and that's what they're entitled to under the law.
Okay. So appreciate that. Now, we've only got 3 minutes, Samantha?
Well, let's say something about restraints and seclusion.
Okay.
Let's say this. There ought to be a presumption that this is a last-ditch intervention, that it's only going to be implemented by people that have appropriate crisis prevention training, and that it's going to be used only in a situation where the person or somebody else is going to be in, there's a potential for great bodily injury or death, either to the person or some third party. Otherwise, you are not supposed to use restraints. You're supposed to have a behavior intervention plan and use positive behavior supports. So we're going to talk more about this next week. But in the comments to the article that you sent, Shannon, why your child needs a no consent letter for restraint and seclusion, there were a lot of comments, including from educators, talking about the importance of and the lack of appropriate staff training. And the teacher comments were interesting because some of the teachers are saying, look, I'm on the front lines. I'm getting kicked. I'm getting hit. I'm getting bitten. I still want to work with these students, but, this isn't working. And so this is, a very controversial and difficult area because it's nuanced, and there are situations in which students are a danger to themselves or others. It should be a very, very rare occurrence. You should not have a situation where you, mom, ask for the incident reports like a client recently did and gets back 200 incidents of restraint and seclusion.
Oh my God.
Where the student is being punished because he can't do his work because he has a specific learning disability and he's in a placement for emotional disturbance and they aren't addressing the fact that he can't read. So this is a huge area. We'll talk about it next week. If there are questions in advance of the show, send them along. Otherwise, we're just going to do restraint and seclusion, nuts and bolts, so that people will understand the legal framework in which it exists in California.
I just want to give people a context that last week there was a Facebook article, you mentioned it, there was a mom who was saying all of us need to put on file a letter saying that we do not give permission for seclusion and restraints, and that ask to have it put in with the IEP. And another mom tagged me on it with a question mark and said, Shannon Penrod, and I frequently people will tag me on something like, hey, did you know about this? Have you talked about it on the show? Can we get more information? So I then tagged you on it because I don't know. And so that's how we got into all this. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you don't know anything about restraint or seclusion because it would kill me if they were, doing that to your son.
Oh my gosh. you know, and I read the original article and I looked at it and I was like, okay, do I really need to do this? Do I need to write a letter and say, I do not give permission to do this? Because I don't think in the moment that the letter stops them. I think it gives you a better case when you're suing them afterwards. And I was like, do I actually, you know, is this, because I think it's a duh. Like, you know, that you, just as you started and said, this is the last ditch effort. And I believe that I've done enough research to know that my son is at the school where that wouldn't happen. But man, it really gave me some pause, Bonnie, I have to say.
Well, we'll talk about the utility of a no consent letter. The thing I want to tell you that just ripped my heart out, this boy's 17 now. He's doing really well because his mother got him out of that violent environment. He got a job at Home Depot. He's working as a forklift operator. He's doing great. But you know what? When his mom read the incident reports, which was in the last 3 months, she was sick because she went and talked to him and she said, why didn't you tell me they were doing this to you? And he said, I thought they had to send something home in writing to you. I thought you knew and you were condoning it. And she said, and that's why my relationship with my son in those years became so bad that I had to have a wraparound services come in and do crisis intervention.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is just...
We got to talk about this next week, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
We appreciate you so much, Bonnie, and we will look forward to talking to you about that next week. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we got to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with Sarah Weeks, the award-winning, best-selling author of young adult novels, including So Be It, a film that is premiering next week. So stick with us.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids. What are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
Here we are, precious.
Hey, Mama.
Kiss, honey.
You've always said Mom and I were a gift from God, but you never told me what really happened. Why?
I was afraid that they might take you away from me.
Does Mama have a mother?
Everybody's got a mother.
Where is she then?
That's another question entirely.
Well, what's the answer? I'm not psychic. It isn't anything fancy like ESP. I'm just lucky. Bernie had always told me that I should only use my luck. Thank you. For a good reason.
Don't abuse your gift.
What about wanting to know if you have a family out there somewhere? Is that a good enough reason? I need somebody to buy me a ticket.
Jeez Louise, did you rob a casino? I don't think our Heidi can be Heidi if she doesn't do this.
I woke up on the ground to the sinking sound of hitting the bottom.
I felt like I was going somewhere.
But the lowest of lows, if you know where to go, but
Come home. Life isn't always fair, is it?
Maybe we were waiting for you, Heidi, and we didn't even know it.
See what I was holding, slowly I'm unfolding.
person has a right to know. They're not supposed to guess who they are.
Call it in the air. Heads or tails?
Heads.
Again.
Tails. Heads. Heads.
That's 10 for 10.
Welcome back. You just saw the trailer for So Be It, a really lovely film that is premiering and in just a few days. And we have joining us via Skype right now the author of the book that this is based on, So Be It. So Sarah Weeks is here with us. She's an award-winning young adult novelist. And Sarah, I thank you so much for being with us today. I know this is a very exciting time. When is the film premiering?
The film opens in New York and Los Angeles next weekend. October 6th is the first show, and it will then open nationwide the week after that, starting with October.
Really amazing. And we just saw the trailer, but tell us a little bit about this film, because I'm telling people they've got to go and see it, but tell them a little bit about the heart of this film.
Okay. Well, the book, So Be It, is about a 12-year-old girl named Heidi, whose mother only says 23 words. That's her whole vocabulary. Most of those words are simple words like good, more, hot, no. But she says one word, soof, and no one knows what it means. So she goes in search of the meaning of that word. And we have Alfre Woodard, who is playing the agoraphobic neighbor who takes care of Heidi and her mama. And Talitha Bateman is a wonderful young actress who's playing Heidi. Jessica Collins as Mama. It's an incredible cast, and the movie with the screenplay by Gary Williams is very, very true to the book. So I'm extremely excited about the movie and very pleased that they stayed so true to the book.
Okay, and I wish that we were just doing an interview about this wonderful idea and this wonderful movie and this fabulous cast. Oh my gosh, what a fabulous cast. And we could just talk about that. But the truth is that we've got to talk about something that's really tearing my ticket, literally and figuratively, that as this film is about to premiere, you get a rating for your film. Tell us what happened and what rating this film got.
It was such a shock. The film was given a PG-13 rating. And the book is appropriate for kids 10 and up. So I do many, many, many author visits every year, and I'm talking about So Be It with 4th and 5th graders. And suddenly we have this PG-13 rating. And, most people think of a PG-13 rating means, oh, the movie must have a lot of violence in it or bad language or sexual content or something. We don't have any of that. And so when we were given the PG-13 rating, the distributor of the film called and said, Sarah, would you be willing to fight for the rating? Will you go and be part of the appeal to appeal the rating? And I said, absolutely. So I prepared my statement and I was all ready to go. And they came out of the screening, 12 people came out of the screening and said, we loved the movie. A number of them were drying their eyes, having gotten kind of weepy at the end. And they said, but we think it's PG-13. And I said, why? And they said, because of thematic material. And I said, what thematic material? And they said, it's very emotional. And I said, well, the book is very emotional. Have you read the book? And none of them had read the book. But when they began to really talk about the things that they felt were the problematic thematic material, it was all these very emotional scenes with the characters who were dealing with various challenges. With Mama, in the book, I never say what it is that she is the cause of her differences, but in the movie we do say that she's autistic. And so there's Mama with her autism, and she gets upset in public. And then Bernadette, the neighbor, has agoraphobia, and she gets upset when she tries to go outside. Those were the two things that they cited as the thematic material. So we're thinking, what's the problem? These are realistic portrayals of people who are very realistic, very wonderful, warm, loving people who get upset. We all get upset. So why is it different when someone who is in some way challenged gets upset? And why is Hollywood saying, no, kids can't see that? What are we protecting our children from? So,
and that was my next question to you, is that there are ramifications because of this rating, that there are children who will not be taken to this movie to see it because of the rating. And I'm sure that that you've thought of other things that I haven't thought about. This actually matters, to have this sort of rating on it. What do you anticipate, Sarah, because it does matter, right?
It really does matter. And one of the things that they told me, the rating board said, is you have to understand, Sarah, this is actually a compliment. We think this movie is so wonderful that adults are going to want to come too, and we think with a PG-13 rating, adults will be more likely to come. My feeling is that a PG rating says parental guidance, take a look at what it is, and if you take a look at the book, you see it's completely fine. But what happens when you give a movie a PG-13 rating, a movie like ours, which has a huge following of kids in grades 4 and up, those children will not be allowed to come on field trips. Many of them can't come on field trips to see the movie. Even though it's a beautiful adaptation of a book that they're reading in their classrooms, they won't be able to come because district-wide, kids often...
Oh, she froze. Let's hope that we get her back. I have to say, and let me know when we get her back, Samantha, this has made me so angry. And I want to say to everybody who's watching, who's an autism parent or a part of the autism community, you should be outraged. I've seen the film, and the things that are in this film, we're saying that this film is on the same level with the films like Mockingbird, which has a great deal of violence in it. In this film, there are several different people who are showcased, who are people who have different abilities. Do we have her back? I thought I heard her. Okay, I was just saying, Sarah, that this has made me so angry because the fact that we're seeing people in this film that have different abilities and varied different abilities, looking at different issues, and that we are saying that cumulatively that means that we shouldn't show this to our children, makes me furious. It feels like a form of discrimination against our communities. And I think that if we let this go as a community, then what will the next thing be? We need to stand up together as a community and be heard on this matter and let people know that, you know what it makes me think about? It's that invisible thing. Tuck your kids away. Tuck yourself away. If you are agoraphobic, that the world doesn't want to see what you're struggling with. If you have autism and somebody, we have had so many things in the last few weeks where autism is being elevated and it's in the entertainment world, and yet a lot of people have said, wait a second, we want to see more women with autism, and we want to see more individuals who maybe they're nonverbal or have more significant challenges. And I just want to say to the autism community, this is it. It's been served up for you. There is a leading character who is a woman who only has a handful of words, and she is a mother. You've been asking for this. Now support this film and tell people that this does not warrant a PG-13 rating. Your lives don't warrant a PG-13 rating. My life doesn't warrant a PG-13 rating, so this can't stand. Are there ways that we can protest? Who do we write to, Sarah?
Well, I think that the best way you can protest is go and see the movie and tell other people to go and see the movie. I feel really confident in saying it's a beautiful, beautiful film. And Mama, who's played by Jessica Collins, is a very, very compassionate figure. When I was on the set and we were filming some of her scenes, I remember she pulled me aside and said, how can you help me? Help me understand Mama more. And it was a scene where Mama is a little bit upset because the vacuum cleaner is making a loud noise. And Jessica had been putting her hands on her ears like that. And so I said, if you really want to know what I think, I want to make sure that it's very clear to our audience that Mama is very happy where she is. She loves her daughter. She loves Bernadette. She's fine. She loves going outside with Heidi. And she may have very few words, but she's having absolutely no trouble at all communicating her love of her child, her love for the person who cares for them. She's a very full character. So I think the best thing is being on this program is such a pleasure and an honor. And, I'm so happy that we're talking about this issue because it has been really difficult for me. It was very difficult to try and wrap my head around the fact that this movie has the same rating as Hunger Games. Now, Hunger Games, it's a great book and it's a great movie, but that's a movie for much older people with much more serious, dramatic stuff going on in there than what's happening in mine.
extreme
I-
violence. And we're not saying
Yeah, I
anything negative against that film, but this is not in the same category. And I don't know that I would take a 10-year-old to see Mockingjay, but I see no reason on earth why you couldn't take a 10-year-old to see this. And especially the fact that there was a award-winning book that was for that age range. It makes absolutely no sense. It feels very discriminatory against our communities.
And also, one of the awards that the book won was the Parents' Gold Choice Award. That's an award that's voted on by parents and what's appropriate for their children to read. So, it just seems wrong to me that it got this rating. And, I have to accept it. There's nothing I can do about it. We appealed it. And, I cried pretty hard afterwards, but I kept it together while we were talking about it. And then since then, I've continued to talk about it in schools. Yesterday, I was in a middle school in New Jersey with 5th and 6th graders, and they were so excited about the movie and raising their hands and saying they all wanted to come. They planned a field trip. And I got a call from one of the teachers today and said, now tell me about that PG-13 rating. And I said, trust me, you don't have to worry about it. And so they'll work around it. But they were concerned about going to the superintendent of schools to say, we want to take our kids to a PG-13 rating. That's where it's unfair for me. It's a family movie in the truest sense of the word. The whole family can go. It's not a movie that adults have to grin and bear, until it's over. It's a movie that adults will understand and appreciate, and so will kids, and then they can talk about it afterwards.
And I think that's the key, is that this is a real conversation starter. It's a great story, and people will be entertained and enjoy the story. And as you said, it's very emotional, and kids will get to have that emotion, but it's a great conversation starter. And these are the kinds of conversations that we need to have for people who don't understand that autism is a spectrum, and for people to be able to see a woman on the spectrum with limited verbal ability being a mom. No, this has not been seen before. That is a huge thing. We do not see characters trying to I'm just going to say, I've said it here before on the show, that I went through a period of agoraphobia after my son was diagnosed and was in therapy for 2 years, and it was rough. And I have not seen, and I love Alfre Woodard, and I got emotional watching her trying to deal with her agoraphobia, because I have a sense of what that is like. And to be able to share that with my son, because he has some memories of when I had difficulty leaving the house, right? To have those reference points, it's criminal that they have done this. You know what it is? It's ignorant. It's ignorant, and I think that our community has to stand up and re-educate. So I really want people to get to this film. I want to take just a second here and shift, though, because now that we've talked about this, I want people to know more about this story and more about how this book came to be. Why was this an important story for you to tell, Sarah?
I've written almost 60 books, and I'm always drawn to characters who are facing some kind of a challenge. It might be, as it is in this case, like a communication challenge or an emotional challenge. But it could also be, situational, a kid who's going through a divorce or something like that. I like to write about people who have challenges that we may at first think, wow, that's overwhelming. They're never going to get beyond that. But they do. They persevere and get beyond. I can't really look back at my own childhood and say, oh, I had a really difficult childhood. I didn't. I had a really wonderful childhood. But I think that we all face challenges, and how we approach them and get past them, that's a universal thing. So one of the things I feel wonderful about with So Be It, both the book and the movie, is I don't think it's something that, you have to understand what it's like to have agoraphobia or autism to understand or to have this movie resonate for you. I think it resonates with all kinds of people. Absolutely. And what's really, really touching and moving to me is that someone like you would invite me on a program like this. I'm not an expert on autism. I don't have a child with autism, nor do we have anyone in our family who is autistic, but I do have friends who have autistic children, and I'm very interested in what their lives are like and what their children are like. And so if you're feeling that I've done a good job of portraying the character of Mama, that nothing could make me happier than that, because it's an honor.
Well, and I think it's important to note, as we've been talking about all these shows that have to do with autism, you know, we're very fond of saying in the autism world, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And it's a really, you know, I mean, I think what I especially love is that with Mama, we see a story that we have not yet seen about autism that I think is going to make people look at things in a different way. You know, she certainly has big challenges, but it's fascinating. I'm always fascinated with everybody. I think everybody has a story, and there's a fascinating aspect of this story about how people who have challenges come together and fit their puzzle pieces of challenges together to cobble together a life, and that really resonates with me, because I think that's the truth. That we see that happen in life so much. And I think that that's exciting for kids to see, and see that there is not just one way to live.
Right.
And that
there's an element in the book about luck. Heidi has a lucky streak, and that comes in very handy as she, you know, because they're limited in how not being able to go outside of the house. Bernadette doesn't work, and she doesn't have an income, and they live in Reno, Nevada. So Heidi's lucky streak helps them out. She sometimes plays the slot machines at the laundromat and brings home money for Mama's medicine and things like that. And what was fun about playing around with that luck was that I think that Heidi is lucky beyond her lucky streak. She's lucky because she has a wonderful mother who adores her and, you know, gives her everything that she really needs. And she has Bernadette to give her the other things that Mama can't give her. So she has a very full life, and she's very lucky. And I do remember that one time I was visiting a school right after the book came out, and someone raised her hand and said, "Heidi is so lucky." And I said, "You mean because of her lucky streak?" And she said, "No, because of her mama."
Yeah.
And I learned later that that child was going through, you know, a situation at home where the mother had left. And so, you know, it was very moving to me to see that she could look at Heidi and say how lucky she is to have her mom.
Yeah, it's a great, as I said before, a great conversation starter. And the cast is amazing. You know, the fact that we've already mentioned Alfre Woodard, and the little girl is a fabulous actress. I'm sure we're going to hear more about her. The fact that you've got John Hurd, one of his last films, and Cloris Leachman, my goodness, you know, playing a relatively small role, but a really lovely role, a pivotal role. Amazing cast. What was it like is this the first time that one of your novels has been made into a film?
It is the first time one of my novels has been turned into a film. I hope it's not the last, because I have totally been bitten by the Hollywood bug. I just loved the process.
What is it like to see these big stars make characters that came out of your mind come to life?
I have gotten kind of a reputation as a ball baby because I cry. I've seen the movie many times, and I still cry at certain scenes, especially scenes with Mama. But it's extremely moving and flattering to see someone saying your words. And, you know, Dash Myhawk, who plays Sheriff Roy Franklin, is so fantastic too. So there's so many wonderful performances, and people really embraced this story. We're a small independent film, and I didn't really know what that meant until I got on the set and realized, like, we just didn't have much money to pay for things. And so wonderful things happened as a result of that. Like Alfre Woodard said, I think Bernadette would have family photographs on the wall. Would you like to borrow mine? And so those are Alfre Woodard's family photographs of her, you know, relatives and ancestors that are up on the walls. People did so many nice things to bring the love to the set, and it absolutely shines through in the movie. It was an incredible experience to be there.
Well, honestly, when I saw the cast and I was like, okay, wait a second, two of my all-time favorite actresses. I mean, I just think Alfre Woodard walks on water. And Cloris Leachman, I think, is one of the greatest actresses, and certainly one of the most Emmy-nominated actresses in our lifetime. So the fact that both of them are in your film blew my doors off, and the rest of the cast is brilliant as well. So you did really well. We're almost out of time, but Sarah, what are you working on now? What do we expect to see from you next?
I'm so glad you asked me that. My next book is called Soof, and it's the sequel to So Be It.
Okay.
I swore I would never, ever write the sequel. It was a little bit like a breech birth, very difficult book to write, but I'm really proud of it, and it'll be out in the fall 2018.
Wonderful. Well, you know, and you probably can't say, but I'm dying to know if there's an element of autism in this one.
There is indeed.
Okay.
And I learned a lot from writing So Be It, and also from people's reactions to it. And I'll be really interested to see how people feel about how I handle the autism in SOOF. It's a different scenario, but I'm very proud of the story.
Well, we will look forward to learning. That was one of my questions, and we're not going to get time to it, is, whenever a writer writes about anything to do with autism, I know there's a certain amount of research and you learn a certain amount of, but we'll check out the book to see what it is that you learned about autism, and we'll save that for when you come back to talk about the book. How's that?
That's great. And as Heidi would say, done, 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 or as Mama would say, done, 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 Heidi, shh.
There we go. And I'll say SOOF to you. So, and again, for people, what's the website to go to find out more information about So Be It, the film?
So Be It, the movie is the website. So Be It, the movie. And there's no E after that B. So it's
Okay.
SOBIT. SoBeItTheMovie.com. And that's also where you'll find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
And I'm really going to ask everybody to get behind this film and support it, because our entire community was done wrong with this rating, and we need to compensate for it, because that's the only way that these stories are going to continue to get told. We cannot lay down and take this. This is a horrible, horrible misstep on the part of the ratings board. Such a shame.
Thank you so much for your support and kind words.
Thank you, Sarah, and we will look forward to seeing the new book.
Okay, great. Thanks.
SOOF.
Take care.
Take care.
SOOF.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we're going to go quickly to a commercial, because we've got a fabulous LMFT here who's going to talk with us about cognitive behavioral therapy and anxiety. Kind of dovetails right into talking, because when I was agoraphobic, you guys, the thing that got me back out into the world, cognitive behavioral therapy. So stick with us. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're at the ABCs and XYZs of Special Needs Conference. And this year, for the first time, they've got something really remarkable. It's the Entrepreneurial Boutique. These are all items that have been made and are being sold by individuals who have special needs. So we're going to do a little shopping and talk to some of these fabulous entrepreneurs. Come on.
My name is Molly Rarick, and I'm founder of Breed's Gift. We're a nonprofit that serves teens and adults with special needs, like Chase here. We were founded in 2013 and serve people in the Conejo Valley, Santa Barbara, and LA.
Our main objective is to give our participants the skills they need to gain a more independent life.
My name is Shelley Cox, and Lisa Zalagi and I are founders of Creative Steps and Create Micro-Business Enterprises. And the items that we're selling here today are all made by the clients who have passions about what they want to make, and then they get the profits from what they make after we've paid all of the other expenses.
We are here today because my goal is to be independent, and also I would like to share all my artwork, and I would like to sell.
Thinking about at his young age being a businessman, it's amazing. I cannot be more proud.
This is Logan Shepard. At first glance, he looks like a typical American teenager. He plays in a band, loves hanging out with his friends, he doesn't like doing homework, and he's not really fond of broccoli. But Logan Shepard is not your typical 14-year-old. Logan was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He was nonverbal, made no eye contact, and his parents were told to abandon all hope. Instead, his parents began an intensive intervention treatment. At its center was a quality ABA program known as the CARD method. This is Logan Shepard now.
All I really want to say is, I'm kind of copying Martin Luther King. I kind of have a dream that one day I can just like inspire people to never give up, because like that's what I want to do in life, because if I can succeed, they can succeed, and I will succeed.
To follow Logan's musical journey, visit www.facebook.com/officialdrummerrock or @drummerrock on Instagram. For more information on the card method, visit www.centerforautism.com or call 800-345-CARD. Rock on, Logan.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We talk a lot on this show about anxiety, and I've been promising you guys that we would have somebody come on and talk about cognitive behavioral therapy. And so we have with us here in the studio right now licensed marriage and family therapist Krista Saad, and we're so happy that you're here.
Thank you so much for asking me.
Well, no, I mean, honestly, this is a big thrill. You didn't get to see the segment right before. We were talking about a movie that's coming out. We were talking about agoraphobia. I had been agoraphobic before. About 2 years after my son was diagnosed, I wasn't able to leave the house. Cognitive behavioral therapy saved all of us. And we talk a lot on the show when we have experts talking about autism and anxiety with kids, about how important it is to not just let it go and think that it's just going to fix itself, that they'll grow out of it. And in fact, sometimes as kids, for instance, with ABA, they can do tons of ABA and they kind of come back into the world through ABA and are more interactive with the world, but it tends to be with more anxiety. And if we don't take care of that piece, we can't get to more progress. And we can't get to, the child truly being happy, which was what the goal was to begin with, right? So we're thrilled that you're here to talk with us about cognitive behavioral therapy. You're somebody who has a background in working with all children of all abilities.
Yes. I did my internship at Julia Ann Singer, which I think is the Barron School now at Vista Del Mar. So I really got a good glimpse of what it was like at an early age during early intervention. But over the years, since 2005, I've had the opportunity to work with young adults on the spectrum. And I have several young adults in my practice that do have that get stuck in negative thoughts and in anxiety, especially social anxiety. A lot of negative thinking. In cognitive behavioral, we call it catastrophizing. They go to an all or nothing.
I'm so guilty of that.
Yeah, right.
I participate in that activity.
They go to all or nothing. Sometimes they just jump to conclusions. They also go off of experience. Well, I never, and I always, and this sort of like really big time negative thinking. So cognitive behavioral therapy is really highly preferred by a lot of clients because they feel like they can do something proactively. And I like to give worksheets and I like to give homework because in between it's so important to focus on that. How to self-regulate, how to counteract your negative thinking and your anxiety. Typically, there's a behavior log that you want to do, usually what's happening before you have the anxiety. You want to kind of write down and journal your thoughts, what comes up for you, but it doesn't always work with the young adults on the spectrum or the teens that I have. So I try to just have them think about really what's the negative thought you're thinking right now. I call it stinkin' thinking. But I'm sure someone else phrased that, coined that, but I love it. I'm like, you're in stinkin' thinking right now. What's happening? What are the negative messages that you're telling yourself? And what is your fear? Really, what is that about?
And I can already hear parents saying, okay, but what age can you start doing this, and what precursor abilities do you already have to have for this kind of a therapy to make a difference? Like if you have somebody who is, let's say, 15 on the spectrum, they're verbal but not very self-aware. Can you do this kind of a thing with them to lessen anxiety?
So what you can do, there might be tangible things that I like to do with, sometimes I have to amend and represent my techniques for some of my clients. Exactly, speaking to what you said about age.
Yeah.
So sometimes I like to use worry stones.
Okay.
Where there might be an object, or I like stones, they're tangible, you can hold it in your hand, you can use it as a calming tool as well. So you might want to talk to your child about getting a worry stone, and whatever you're worrying about, they don't have to identify it, but put your worries in the stone.
So you're saying that there are ways that you can modify this, even if they're not self-aware.
Correct. I have to do this.
So that you can do this. But really, you need to be working with a professional of your caliber. Don't you agree?
I feel like I have to be so creative and impromptu in the moment, and really feel where my client's at and what techniques and tools I can use for them in this moment.
Yeah.
And it's a journey with them. I follow them around and mentally and emotionally, and sort of figure out what's going to work. So also there's a lot of breathing techniques and physical ways to reduce stress and anxiety. If you have a child that's little verbal, not self-aware, you can do physical activities to help reduce the anxiety and bring more calm. But for those that are more able to talking therapy, my young adults that come in, we talk about the negative self-talk and how can you counteract that with more positive messages.
Okay.
And I also like to do a blend of mindfulness.
Yes.
I love
We just had our mindfulness moment earlier. We do a mindfulness
Oh.
moment on the show every Thursday.
I love it.
Yeah.
Really therapy is about feeling the emotions, being in it, knowing you're going to be able to get through it, but feeling it and not getting stuck. So a lot of times people tend to get stuck and they spin. I like thought stopping.
Okay.
So you imagine like a stop sign in your mind that, oh no, here I go again, I better stop. So catching yourself when you start to have this anxiousness, or you start to feel it rise up in your body. I also like to do body awareness. Where are you feeling it? What color is it? What is it? What is the texture? Is it like puffy clouds, or is it like a sharp object? So all of those things can work for multiple ages.
Yeah.
Not just more of the traditional couch talking therapy.
Right.
So different techniques for different needs.
And one of the things that forgive me because I've only been through it, right? For me, but it seems like to me that one of the things that I responded to really well was that there were rules that I could apply to my anxiety. And since our kids with autism spectrum disorder, they tend to respond really well to rules and to, well, first we do this and then we do this and then and there were steps that I could do to ratchet down my anxiety. And I was like, oh, I could see why this would work for individuals who are on the spectrum, because it's like, oh, well, the rules are that first I do this and then I do that. And if you follow the steps, it does ratchet it down.
That's why it's so nice, because it's tangible. It's something you can see, and you can do an assessment log for your feelings and your anxious thoughts or depressive thoughts. So that's why people really like it, because you can actually see the progress that you're making, or what's really occurring here.
Yeah.
And they really do like that. Some of the things that you can also do is redirect yourself into something more healthy. Some of my clients talked about, I did a poll this week, they like yoga, they like listening to their favorite song when they're having an anxious moment.
Oh, that's great.
Maybe doing a little walk around the block. For people that are more self-aware, if they have a negative thought such as, I don't fit in, nobody likes me, I'm afraid to go to school because someone might make fun of me today, or I'm not good enough, and I talk about what would be something more positive that you can say about yourself. Your brain is like the computer, right? And where do you want to file it away? Do you file it in, I'm not good enough, or, hey, wait a minute, I did something really good yesterday, so I must be okay. And then you start to think about, what did you do fantastic today?
Yeah.
And you start to rethink am I really not good enough, or can
Is there
I
more to that?
be okay?
And for people who've never experienced cognitive behavioral therapy, I mean, you're like, well, what exactly is it? It's changing the patterns of your thoughts, isn't it?
Cognitive distortions.
Okay.
So, which is also the negative self-talk. It is changing the patterns. And it's replacing it with something
More positive.
Mindful.
Yeah.
I love gratitude lists.
Yes.
If
You're
they're
singing my song, sister. I love this. Yeah, because and we tend to think, oh, okay, that's good for me, but would that be good for my kid? And actually, it's perfect. Last night I was at a screening.
You can make it a family activity.
Yes.
For assessing what is the evidence that you really feel like you have no friends. I don't feel happy. I don't want to go to school. I'm very nervous about it. I don't have any friends. Well, then you go back and you're like, is that the case? And you can do this as a family activity too, and go back and think about what are the negative things, what can I replace it with?
And it's important for us as parents to model this behavior and encourage our kids to do it. But I started to say, I was at a screening last night for a swim team, a documentary about kids competing on a swim team. And there are some lovely moments in it where one of the guys on the swim team is having some anxiety and he acts out a little bit. And one of the other ones says, you need to take a moment, you need to count to 10, you need to take some breaths. And then they're having this discussion. And you can see that people have given them tools. And what a powerful thing for our kids to have a toolkit that, this isn't working, so what do I do next? I try this and I try this. I think that's what we all want to do as parents, is give our kids the toolkit.
And I actually ask my clients, what would you do if, and I'm really kind of basing it on other scenarios from other clients. And I would love to do, I don't have a group right now, but I would love to do a group support. But they can give ideas and suggestions to each other, and peer help is really so instrumental to be able to help somebody else, your peers, other people that you're in the same boat with that anxiety. And so it's really important to do that to siblings.
Absolutely.
Helping them.
Now, I'm told that we have a question, so I'm going to bring that up. But while we're doing that, I want you to tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Okay.
So go ahead and look right at that camera and tell them how they can get a hold of you.
I'm in practice in West Hollywood by the Grove, for those of you that live here. My phone number is 323-219-9291. I've been in practice since 2006, and I actually worked as a behavior supervisor at an agency working with young kids on the spectrum and parents and families, doing behavior modification and consulting. So I have that background as well.
I've already referred somebody to you.
Fantastic.
But for people who don't live here in the LA area, and because people will write into us and say, where do you go to find a good cognitive behavioral therapist? Is there a website where people have, is there a licensure place?
Well, there is for me in LA, there's a professional board that I belong to, LA CAMF, California Marriage Family Therapist, the LA chapter. There might be something you can Google about, Psychology Today actually has a referral site.
Okay. Because do all LMFTs, that's a mouthful, do cognitive behavioral therapy?
No, there's so many different types of therapy. There's, I use a blend, again, depending upon what I see and what I feel might be best suited for this person. But there's a lot, and people in other parts of the United States or other parts of the world, Google cognitive behavioral therapy, psychology, or something like that. But for the United States, Psychology Today has a good website.
Okay.
It also lists what insurance companies they might be with.
Oh, that's exciting too.
And I do take insurance as well. I have a lot of insurance clients.
That's fabulous. So Tanya has written in and said, cognitive abilities with kids who have limited communication, ? How does this help? Or can it help those kids?
Well, it's like what we talked about.
Yeah.
You might have to imagine what your child might be thinking.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if, you kind of wonder, are you wondering about going to school today? Sort of narrate the anxiety. what you might be seeing, and then try to utilize a tool through yourself.
Yeah. But even then, I think when that's the case, it's even more crucial that you're working with somebody who's an expert.
Yes.
And I think it's, I think we've only got 1 minute, but I think it's important that you're unique, maybe, that because you have that background and understand ABA therapy. Sometimes people that do ABA therapy go to a therapist and then they tell them to do something that's antithetical to the ABA, and that's not helpful.
Exactly, and I've taken all the courses in ABA. I just was not, my realm was not BCBA.
Sure.
I'm all about feelings.
Right.
And,
I think it's a godsend for all of us that you get it. You're not going to say, so often people go and say, I don't want to do this because, it's I'm going to push me, pull you. So finding somebody like you, we're totally out of time, but I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back on again because I know the audience is loving this, but we do have to go. I want to say to people, back next week, and so excited that on next Thursday's show, we are having the creator of Atypical with us. And so Rabia Rashid is going to be with us, and that's a very exciting thing. And we've got Emily Island with us next week talking about Be Safe, the movie, and many more guests. We're having somebody from Autism come. Debbie Tippett-Clark is going to be here with us, and we might even have a dog in here, so it's going to be really exciting. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.